My name is Michael Rosenbluth. I'm the president and CEO of the Parker Jewish Institute organization. On behalf of us, the Association of Jewish Aging Services, is one of our sponsors. We want to welcome everyone to today's Holocaust Remembrance ceremony. If I could please, before I do my formal speech, if we can get a moment of silence to begin for today. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's important that we take time to remember those who perished in the Holocaust many, many years ago. I know we have some Holocaust survivors here today. I know my family lost people, and again, a very, very sad situation to say the least. But it's important that we learn and remember, and that's one of the things we're going to do today. The Parker organization wants to welcome Flushing House, who's here with us today, SNAP, Club Pride, QCSW. We appreciate everyone coming out and joining us today. Dr. Israel in the back of the room, our associate medical director, has some of his students here today to do some learning with us. So again, we appreciate everyone joining us. The Parker organization is firmly entrenched in our community, being a mission-based organization, more than 105 years old. We operate just not only this organization, this building, which is inpatient. We take care of many people in the community, both as providers and insurers of care. On any given day as providers, we're taking care of probably 800 to 900 people. As insurers of care, we take care of about 11,000 plus people every day. So it's a very, very busy organization. Thankfully, thanks to your efforts and your support, continues to grow each and every day, and we're very thankful for that. And we can only grow because of the wonderful staff that we have. I do want to take a moment to thank our dietary department. I do want to thank Lena Scacco, Lorraine Brewer, and Andrew Bernstein, and other team members who helped put this event together today to make sure that it's successful. With that said, instead of me standing up here for 2 hours and giving you a speech, I'm going to right now turn the presentation excuse me, over to Beth Lilac. Beth is the Senior Director of Education and Community Affairs with the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. Beth is the Senior Director of Education and Community Affairs at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center in Glen Cove, nice and local to us here over at Parker, for the past 10 years. In addition to her position for Holocaust studies, she's also a genocide historian. Beth is the curator of the museum and designs and tailors different seminars and professional activities for people returning from military active duty, nurses, physicians, attorneys, and university faculty. We always have to make sure that we remember. It's very important to remember. With that said, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Beth. Please come up to the podium. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please enjoy the presentation. Thank you very much. Best news about this is you won't hear from me again today. Thank you.
Good morning. It really is a personal honor to participate in this amazing program. I love the name of the program, Stories of Strength. All of the survivors here today, the survivors that I interact with at my center, is my main source of strength, and so I just love the title. I also believe it is so important to make sure that we promote the Holocaust through education, through different events like this, as an interfaith, intergenerational event, because it did involve intergenerations, so many different ages, as well as different religions and cultures. I would like to personally say thank you to the survivors that are speaking today and sharing painful memories or speaking on behalf of your husband. Thank you very much for opening up and sharing your lives. I'd also like to express my appreciation to Michael Rosenbluth, Andrew Bernstein, and Rabbi Fox, and Lorraine Brewer for organizing this event and for allowing me to share this very important day with you and to explaining why the Holocaust is relevant. Even though you know it in your gut, it seems like we're constantly having to defend why we should be teaching the Holocaust in schools and universities and to different professions. I have a very short PowerPoint with some slides on it, and after that, I will introduce our speakers. Okay, so if you could just take a look at the screens. You don't have to look at me. The screens are nicer. So why do I have a picture of Jewish dinosaurs? My favorite happens to be the Bagalosaurus. The Jewish dinosaurs represent how most people think of the Holocaust, that it was just a Jewish event, only Jews would be interested in such event, and that the dinosaurs represent that most people think that this is so old, this happened so many years ago, that it's no longer relevant. So these are the two myths that we are constantly shattering at our Holocaust Intolerance Center. Why do we teach it? Looking at what the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum has on their website about Holocaust education, the 2 points that really stand out for me and that I like to address to new audiences is that it really teaches us and helps us to become more responsible citizens. And if there's one thing that I'm seeing in the world today and in America, we really need to teach our young people how to be more responsible for themselves and for the community at large. It also gives us information by looking at the evolution of Nazism. We see so many red flags where the Holocaust could have been stopped. And so we need to look to see if our country is experiencing any of these red flags, and we need to act on it. We can't be silent. That was an incredibly destructive force during the Holocaust, and we need to speak up and get in touch with our legislators and tell them when we disapprove of something. Really important today to teach about the Holocaust because of the Jewish refugees who were turned away in 1938, before war began, before mass murder. This is a time where the history of the Holocaust either might not have happened at all or had gone down a different pathway. But in 1938, we had something called the Evian Conference in a very nice resort in Paris, where because of pressure from Jewish people here in America, pressuring Franklin Roosevelt to do something, he called for a conference and invited 31 other nations. Unfortunately, Roosevelt did not attend the conference, and he did not send an official representative. He sent a friend of his that was a businessman. So already we see that this conference is doomed to failure. The only real topic on the agenda was about helping Jewish refugees and opening up the gates. I don't know if you can see that well, but there are 32 countries up on the slide. They were all in attendance, from Canada, South America, North America, Europe, all over the place, including Australia. Only one country out of those 32 nations, including big countries like us and Canada and Australia, only one country stood up and said, we will open the gates, we will accept Jewish refugees. That country was the Dominican Republic. Do you know how tiny the Dominican Republic is? You can barely find it on a map. But they had the strength, and even though their country was under a dictator for different reasons, they said, we will accept Jews. What would have happened if the United States had stood up? What would have happened if the United States had stood up and said, we are going to open up our gates. We welcome Jewish refugees. What do you think would have happened? I believe that other countries would have followed suit, and we would not have gone down the road that we did into such tragedy. The other reason that it's so important to teach the Holocaust and to remember it, and again, to show what an interfaith event this was, what a multicultural event this was, is because of the rescuers. Rescuers were from all different religions. I know this slide has a lot on it, but there's kind of an orange column of different religions. That's only a partial list. Catholics, Muslims, atheists, Jews, Huguenots, all different people from all different religions rescue Jews. They risked their lives to save strangers or to save friends. The other column, which I know is very difficult to read, and I apologize, but it lists just some of the countries where rescuers came from. China, Japan, El Salvador, Turkey, Lithuania, Ireland. People from all over the world helped rescue Jews. The ones from outside of Europe were diplomats who were stationed in Europe at the time, and they did everything in their power, most of them, did everything in their power they could to write visas to put Jews under their protection. And many, many Jews were saved because of these heroic events. We also need to get our teachers in grade school and at university to teach about the Holocaust. We need to remember that the elite Nazis, the ones with the most power and the ones leading those mobile killing units, were unbelievably educated. They were medical doctors and architects. They were engineers. They were attorneys. They had multiple degrees at times. Where did they put all of their intelligence and all of their hard work at university? They put it into destruction. So it's very important, when, even if we're teaching engineering and math or English, whatever topic we're teaching, we need to also embed compassion and empathy. It's not outside the curriculum. It should be part of that curriculum. We know it's important because of what has happened in the past. We also need to teach for business people today and for the business leaders of tomorrow. These are just some of the countries that supported the Nazis, that used slave labor to continue with their profits. A lot of them are American countries. A lot of them are American companies. Standard Oil continued to do business with the Nazis even after we were fighting against them. Today, people are still taking advantage of children, of slaves. A lot of the clothes that we made, it's almost hard to find clothes that aren't made by child slave laborers. Chocolate that we eat, if it doesn't say organic or fair trade, that Hershey bar, that Nestle bar has been made by child slave labor. They're the ones that are picking the cocoa beans and dealing with the cocoa beans on the coast of Africa. So there's so many different ways that we can learn from the Holocaust and apply it to what is going on today and how it affects our daily life. We also have to remember one of the biggest things that we teach at the center to everyone that comes in, regardless of age, is that the Nazis had a choice. The most intimate murderers had a choice. I have a quote up there by one of the sergeants from one of the killing units, who is saying that sometimes the police, the soldier, the men did not want to kill, and nothing happened to them. They were not executed. They were not sent to prison. Nothing happened to their families. There was absolutely no punishment. So if these guys who were killing as the Einsatz group and the mobile killing units, if they had a choice during war, during genocide, during a Nazi dictatorship, what does it say about our own ability to make the right choice today? We don't embrace the power of our own choices, and we can choose to help somebody and to do some good rather than turning away. We also have to remember that one of the first steps that the Nazis did, and that happens, I've seen it in our country recently, I've seen it in other countries, is that we divide people into the us and the them. I'm the good, I'm the superior, you're the bad, you're the inferior. That leads to demonizing people. And once you demonize them, you dehumanize them. Once you dehumanize them, you can do pretty much anything you want because you've justified that. So we need to be very careful. This is not a political issue. Being a responsible citizen is a non-partisan issue. It doesn't matter Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. But one of the red flags as a Holocaust historian was when Trump was running and he talked about having a Muslim registry. That put the fear of everything up my spine. Because once you have a registry for one people, the next step is going to be some severe persecution. And if the Muslims are going to be registered and persecuted, who is going to be the next group? And it doesn't matter if I'm not a Muslim, I need to stand up for those people that are being targeted. That's a lesson that we've learned from the Holocaust. What happened in 2015 impacted somebody very strongly. She spoke at our center recently. Her name's Mitsu Saladar. She was 19 years old in nursing school in 1942 when she was forced out of her nursing school, put on a train, and sent to an internment camp for Japanese Americans. She said that when she heard Trump talking about a registry for Muslims, all of that trauma, that PTSD came back to her because she knew that there was already a precedent set in this country of putting a certain group of people in prison camps. These were not concentration camps, I'm not saying that, but they were prison camps. People lost their property, they lost their freedom, they lost all their rights. So we're also learning from other groups from World War II, from the past in our own country, and connecting these issues to the Holocaust and to today. We also need to be allies and to support each other and to support other victims of oppression or of genocide. We had an event at our program. You can see some Africans on the left. We have our Holocaust survivors on the right. The Africans that you're looking at are from Namibia. They suffered a genocide in the early 1900s. The people committing it were Imperial Germans. And they came to our center to learn about how to get reparation, how to teach their genocide to their own people. There was an exchange of ideas that was very beautiful and very supportive. And that's something, coming from a horrible situation like the Holocaust, we can teach certain issues to other groups. And I want to end with a reminder from the Talmud that the highest form of wisdom is kindness, and this program is doing that, is a very smart program, because it is all about kindness, and you're promoting tolerance and goodness of the heart and compassion. So it's really been a true honor for me to participate in this and to meet you all today, and I thank you very much. And please, come visit our center. We have a great museum. Thank you. The first speaker is Hana Pfeiffer-Wiesenfeld, and Hana was born in Romania, and she survived imprisonment in Transnistria, which was a horrific ghetto camp hybrid. She also survived a death march. She was only 8 years old when all this was happening, when this first began. After liberation, she tried to get into British-controlled Palestine. She was captured by the British and sent to a Cyprus internment camp. When she was finally freed, she joined at that time, the very new Israeli army, or Jewish Palestine army, and she fought in the War of Independence. The next speaker, Alice Tenenbaum, was born in the former Czechoslovakia. She was forced into the Munkac Ghetto, again, when she was very young, and from there, she was deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau. When she arrived in Auschwitz-Birkenau, she was only 14 years old. Mia Feuer is the wife of Samuel Feuer, sitting at this first front table. He's a resident here at Parker Jewish Institute, and Mia is going to tell us a little bit about her husband Sam's experiences. Sam was only 14 years old when he was forced into a ghetto with his family, and from there he was also deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau. When you listen to these people, when you are looking at them, know that you are looking at miracles. For any child to have survived the Holocaust is nothing less than a miracle, because there was a very intentional plan by the Nazis and their collaborators to destroy every single Jewish child. So these people represent the tiny, less than 10% of Jewish children that survived. And it is truly an honor to be with them today. May I ask Hana to please come up here.
My name is Hana Pfeiffer-Wiesenfeld. I'm born in Romania, Stănești, Bukovina. It was Austria first, then Romania, then Ukraine, then again Russia, now it's Ukraine again. It's a mixture, sort of. And 41, the Nazis came in. We were sitting at Shabbat table and eating, then all of a sudden the Gentiles, the Ukrainian, marched in and said, "Leave everything behind. You are going with us." We had no idea where they're taking us. We weren't allowed to take nothing with us. We left the homes. We marched to the court. There we all gathered, and they took the children separate, the mothers and the fathers. The fathers were taken on a hill, all the men, 95 men. They were stripped, tortured, and killed and thrown in a pit. Some were still alive. That's what they told us, because we looked for the men and they weren't there. As for the women and the children, we were there separated from our mothers. When an SS walks in and said, "Put the books on fire from the courthouse," And my mother stood up. We commanded the German language too. There were so many officers there. And so she said, whatever is going to happen to my children, the 2 girls, will happen one day to you. He slapped her over the face, and he stopped that fire that was supposed to burn us alive. We were there a couple of days, no food in the courtroom. Finally, the gendarmes, which were in cahoots, there were Romanians, they were in cahoots with the Nazis. Of course, whatever the Nazis told them, they did. And they said, now you're coming with us. No idea where we are heading, by foot, no clothes with us, only the clothes that we had. I was 8 years old. My sister was 4 years old. My parents were very young still. And we went through Moldavia. The first stop was a place where Jewish people were driven out, and there was no water supply, food, forget it. We stood on our feet in little rooms for 8 days. Most of them died out. Some of us, including myself and the family, did survive. From there, we marched to the Dniester, which is a big river to go to finally reach the destiny, so to speak, of the ghetto. We were driven on a hill, and the mud was yellow. The shoes were left behind. It was pouring. It was in the fall. I do not remember dates. And all of a sudden, they put us in a barge from cows and horses, a huge barge, and they pushed us all in. Children, the mothers, whoever was left alive prior to this tragedy, they pushed us in, and most of them drowned. I was separated from my mom. I was with my dad. My sister was separated too because everybody pushed. We didn't know where we were heading. Maybe we were heading to a good place, so to speak. All of a sudden, I yelled, Mom, Mom. Mom is not dead. And she's pregnant, 2 months pregnant. And as we went out on the other side, finally we reached the Ukraine. My mother surfaced. We were happy. Again, they drove us kilometers. We didn't have any more strength. And it's raining, it's the fall, it's cold, we have no clothes. We reached finally the ghetto. It was like villages. It was in the vicinity of Babi Yar. The notorious shooting went on thousands a day. Some of them were still alive, thrown in the pit. We were in that vicinity. The ghettos were formed, the little ghettos around. We had no food, nothing, and no clothes. My mom went to the field, and she brought me a potato, a frozen potato. She dug it in the snow. It had a worm. And I said, Mom, I'm not going to eat it. She said, eat it before it eats you. That's how angry she was. She wanted us to stay alive, that she was rude in a way, and I couldn't comprehend her. To the very day, I can't figure it out. We ate grass, and once a year I went Christmas carol. I disguised myself with my little sister, and we went Christmas carol so we could get some food. The people were very nice. Those Ukrainians were very nice, not mine, not where I was born. The Germans took away from them everything, so they felt for us. They had empathy. We approached, I learned the Christmas carol, I spoke Ukrainian, and as we approached one of the houses, she wouldn't let us in. They were good people, but we were full of lice, so they wouldn't let us in. We had diseases, and we weren't dressed, schmattes, torn schmattes, no shoes, with bandages around, not bandages, schmattes around. And so she brought out borscht with 2 spoons. It was winter, it was brutally cold there. There is very cold. And she handed to us that plate, and we both sat, and my sister fought with me. She said, you eat more than I. Meantime, there was nothing to eat because the beets were frozen from the borscht, and when we put the spoon in, we couldn't get out the spoon, so it made no difference. But I did give us some bread, a piece of cookie, and my mom made a little sack for us to carry to put it in. We came back to the ghetto, and some children stole it from us. They were hungry. But every year, we went Christmas carol to taste a little food. It was unbelievable. Now, I understand these ladies want to follow speaking, so I'll try to make it short. 1944, the partisans came in, and a Nazi was sitting in the shack that we were. And he said to me, because I was the eldest, he said, she's a Jewish, and I disguised myself. At almost the end of the war, I was alive till now. I want to tell the story. I had a dream like Dr. Luther King, to have a home. I yearned from a home for Jewish people. And finally, it came true, but it took a while to go horror. So these partisans marched in. A lot of them were Jewish. They embraced us. We were skinny. The lice were crawling, and they gave us a piece of bread and sugar. But the Nazis came, and they had to run away. They were afraid for them. An interim comes in, a Nazi with the band, and he said, they're Jews. We speak Ukrainian. We didn't want it. God forbid they found out we knew German too, but I understood every word he said. So in interim, the Russian came. The Russian, I was liberated by the Russian. And they came, and as they approached the shack where we were, the Nazis, he got up, and he wanted to run. A grenade was thrown in our direction, and he got scared, he got wounded, and he ran away. At that moment, we knew we are safe. The Russian marched in. We were kissing their boots, the boots from the Russian people. It was some excitement. We finally alive. Now comes another journey. We want to go home and see who survived in our towns. And Belz, there was a shtetl Belz, there is a song from Belz. That was in Moldavia. And we passed with the Russian tank, took us home. We were very eager to get home. And that Belz was still burning. There is still war going on. We are heading to our town. We are coming there. There are just a few survivors from so many people in that shtetl. And so we got one house that wasn't destroyed. It had nothing in it, and we hid in there. At night, we are getting a letter with a stamp, a red one. It's called Ziegel, whatever. And it's written in it, you Jews bastard, if you don't leave, we're going to kill you. Why did you come back? This is not your place. That's already 1945. Thank you kindly. And so we have to run again. We're running into another city. There were left banderovцы, which means the ones that cooperated with the Nazis, Ukrainian, they were left after the war. And they wanted to destroy us. So then, all of a sudden, Stalin gives the order that these survivors, we have for you a home, Berebijan in Siberia. How about you should go there? When we heard that, we got scared. Everybody made false papers, and we started to run from that too. In 46, beginning of 46, we wound up in Transylvania, pardon me. They had to give us rooms. They were full of bed bugs, and I had to clean the bed bugs. I had to pour some gasoline every morning. It was hard work for me. I was still young and skinny, but I was doing it. I wanted to make it through, to feel a taste, a new life. I really had a dream. I really thought about maybe something good will happen now for the Jewish people. And so I was there a couple of months, and then I was yearning. I wanted to make something out of myself, to get some education. I had to start from grade 1. So they were forming a Zionist organization, but I couldn't get the Aliyah. The Aliyah means to go to Palestine. I don't know, Aliyah. Can you translate the Aliyah? People, some don't know. Aliyah means that I enlisted to go to Palestine, whatever. Anyhow, they sent me to an orphanage home to the capital of Bucharest, hoping to get the Aliyah to Palestine. They refused. They didn't have enough quota. The quota was very small. So I go back to Transylvania, and somebody financed my trips back and forth, and I enlist in a organization, B'nai Akiva, and finally I get the lucky one, and I'm the only one from that city in Transylvania where I'm going to be going to Palestine. So illegal, they put me in a cattle train by myself, no sanitary condition. That's already 46, and I'm heading to Palestine. What do I know what I'm going to encounter on my way there? We are going to get the boat. The boat was pure of children, orphanage children. It was called Pan-York, Pan-Christian. We wound up in Bulgaria. The people were very nice, but we went through a long journey to get there. They fed us there. These people were so nice. They were awarded. My son awarded the president of Bulgaria because I told the story, and they deserved these people. They were very kind to us because that was like a transit place. We had to go, and the boat had to be brought in. Finally, we are on the boat. We are on the boat, and we are heading to Palestine. The boat, you should know from it, bunk beds was very inconvenient. We had lots of sardines they fed us. I never touched a sardine again in my life. That's all there was. So we're heading to Palestine. We come to the shore of Haifa after 3 weeks. We're singing the anthem, the Israeli. And all of a sudden, English people come, and they said, no, you're not debarking. Some of us, they had Hagana among us. And they said, no, you are going straight with us. Undersea boats escorting us to Cyprus Island. There I was almost close to a year. What can I tell you? I experienced a camp number 2. The English weren't good. They didn't feed us. We were in tents. I have a picture I'll show you. And 8 months went by, no education. Water, they gave us a cup of water. You had to brush your teeth. We didn't have no paste and no brushes. And you had to drink from the same cup. And it dried out from the heat. So there I was 8 months. Golda Meir, should rest in peace. She came and we spoke to her. I spoke Yiddish to her, and I said, would you please get us out of here? We had enough of ghettos, please. Yes, she spoke to the English mandat, and they gave us per quota to go to Palestine. It wasn't Israel yet. 47, finally, per quotas. Among us, Hagana hidden between us, and the Hagana were the freedom fighters. Matter of fact, I was there too with them, training. I was a little girl, and they called me Tzutzig. What are you doing here? I knew that I can get some better food right in Cyprus. So I went there among them. When we came to the shore of Israel, they departed at the Hagana, and they said, you're going to school. They put us, first the war was going on in Israel with the Arabs, constant bombardment, and we were hidden underground. It wasn't pleasant. It went on and on, day after day, the Arabs. It was horrendous. So I said, what is that now? Another war? Anyhow, the Hagana, the freedom fighters, went to fight, and we went to an IQ test, and I was fortunate to send to Henrietta Salt Agricultural School by Henrietta Salt. I was there for 2 years, but we couldn't really study a lot because the Arabs, there was constant, we had to run down and hide, because in nightgowns, no less, because there was war going on. I finished the 2 years, and I said, where the heck am I going to go now? I mean, I have no home. What am I going to do? The country was in a disarray. So many people are coming from abroad. I mean, the survivors, they don't have finances to support them. It's terrible. So I went to a hostel home, and I went to wash floors by people. So they should give me a space in the hostel home of women so that I could sleep there, and they didn't have room. I begged them, near your bed I'm going to sleep. Just lend me a blanket, and I pay you for the night. And I went to look for work. That's one thing. I had the willpower always, a drive in me to live, to tell the story. And sure enough, I went to the army. I said, you have nowhere to go. Go enlist in the army. I come to the army. They said, you're too young. You still have 6 months. Oh, my God, what am I going to do 6 months? But they let me stay the 6 months. And I went to wash floors night and days to pay for my little space there. Well, finally came the day, and I enlisted in the army. I was the happiest because I'll have a bed for two years. I'll have a bed. I had a home already. And I served in the army with pride. In the Israeli army, I was in the Air Force. I studied the parts of the airplanes. I had a good time. I was young. We had good times in between, too. It wasn't easy. After that, the family came from Romania, some of my survivors. I went to the Romanian consulate, and I asked him to please help me. There was already communism in Transylvania, and they wouldn't let them out. But finally, they came. Of course, I was still in the army, and they arrived. They put them in tents, Mabarot it was called. There was no homes. And they agreed to that. They were happy. They are in Palestine. They have a home already. I was there after the army. I had to go and look for a job. But I got a job. I got a job in the income tax office, partially translating and partially working there. And all of a sudden, I'll tell you now, I'll inject a little romance. All of a sudden, I go on the street, and this man is staring at me, and he said, I'm going to marry this young lady. He was an American, not born. He was in Siberia during the war, but he was an American citizen. He came to Israel for a visit. And I said to myself, I understood English. We had to learn in the army English. I said, what the heck is he talking? I have plenty of guys walking out. What is it? No, I'm going to marry this woman. And since I worked in the income tax, his cousin was my boss. Last that I know, the following day I come there. And he said, oh my God, what is she doing here? I want to marry this girl. And sure enough, the boss was very much for it. He wanted me to be his, one of the relatives. And we went out for a week. But I really didn't care to leave Israel. I loved Israel too much, with the misery that I've been through there too. So the war broke out 56. He had to go back to America. I told him, I'm going to be enlisted back to the army now, which was true. I was taken to the reserve army. There was a war going on. And I told them, mister, go back. With the last airplane, he went to America. We corresponded. There was no telephones at those days. And believe it or not, and 8 months later, he sends a cable, I'm going to marry you. And he comes to Israel, and he married me, and I came to the United States. Now I'll tell you in short, because I have a note from this young lady. I have 2 sons, Columbia graduates. I have 5 grandkids. Columbia, 3 from my family, Columbia graduates. And I'm very, very proud of my children and grandchildren. They're very good to me. And I try to make the best of my life. I thank you for listening to me.
Anyway, we went from our home with the family to a brick factory, and they gave us enough space for a quilt where we could all stay together. And then we stayed there 1 month, and then from there directly to Auschwitz. And when we arrived in Auschwitz, the sweet gentleman, Dr. Mengele, welcomed us, told us to separate women on one side, men on the other. And when that was done, then they said everybody under 16 and over 40 should get on a truck because it's a very long journey. And one of the prisoners came up to me and said, no matter what they say, remember you're 16. I was 14, I didn't even look 14. And so from then on, I became 16. And there was a friend of mine from my hometown who he told the same thing. But when we arrived in Auschwitz and they started shaving our hair, they asked again if anybody's under 16, we don't have to shave your hair. So my friend stepped out, and of course, everybody under 16 and over 40 went directly to the gas chamber right after we arrived in Auschwitz. And there they took us to barracks, each one of us. There were thousands in each barrack, and there was always a Jewish person, a Polish one usually, because they arrived in 42. This was 44. They took care of us. And I was selected by this Irma Grazer, this horrible creature. They call her the beautiful beast. I have a book of her. And she somehow, and to this day we don't know why, they are guessing why she saved me, but she saved me 16 times. Dr. Mengele took me to go to the gas chamber, and she would come and take me out. And so the story that people who are from Germany that I spoke to and people who knew her, that everybody hated her, but she had a sister my age, and she looked a little bit like I did. I guess I should feel honored that I look a little bit like a Nazi, but the reason that she saved me so many times was because I looked like her sister, and I was the same age. And that's how I survived Auschwitz. And I was with my mother and two sisters. And I got scarlet fever. I gave it to one of my sisters, and when we were standing and being counted outside in Auschwitz, she collapsed, and then they said they're taking her to a hospital, but there were no hospitals in Auschwitz. And then somebody said they saw her being gassed, who worked in the gas chamber. And then from Auschwitz, we kept hoping that we would be somehow chosen to leave that place. All we did there, every morning they would wake us about 5 o'clock. I don't know what time it was because we had no clock. We would stand outside 4 or 5 hours. They would count us over and over again. Then they let us go inside, about 12 people to a bunk. And then every single day, afternoon, they would come and take us to a bathroom. It didn't matter when you had to go. It was once a day. And it was a huge room with 1,000 holes. And you would go there and then march home. And that was your day activity because they never let you get out of the room. They told us when we arrived that if we take our clothes and hang them on a hook to remember the number of the hook because we'll come back to it. And of course, you never saw your clothes again. And my parents put in all kinds of jams, jewelry into the shoulder pads. They put American currency into the belt. And they threw a different piece of clothing at us. They never gave us back our shoes. I had the same dress for 1 solid year. I never saw water. I never changed. Every so often we had to take our dress off, and they sprayed DDT on it, and then they gave it back to us. And so for 1 year, I wish I had saved it, but for 1 year, I lived in that one dress, no underwear, winter and summer. And then from Auschwitz, they took us finally, and I was so thrilled because there were no gas chambers, because Dr. Mengele would come every 10, 12 days to pick enough people to feed the gas chambers. And that I was called the moving mouse because I was grinding my teeth full time. And then when we got out of there, to me, it was just like getting liberated because I no longer had to face the gas chambers. And I think I'm the youngest one out of there. And that's what I hear anyway, people telling me that. And from there, we went to a work camp called Grossrosen. And there they said the youngest and the oldest should step out of line, and that scared me again. But what they wanted is for somebody to clean the toilets and sweep up and empty the trucks while the people went to work. So my mother and my sister went to carry these were big logs of wood and to build booby traps for our own allies. And they did that for a few months, and then they were worried that the Russians would invade the camps, so they put us on this 40,000 people death march. And I understand that 40,000 started out, and about 6,000 made it to Berlin, where they put us on trains. It was open cattle cars, and the only time we were without Germans or Nazis was in Berlin, because Berlin was being bombed and they escaped into shelter, but nobody had enough energy to climb over, and nobody knew where they would hide if they did. And then from there, when they got us off the trains, we marched to Bergen-Belsen, and again, a lot of people died on the trip. I begged my mother to let me stop, and they said it doesn't hurt, and they just put a bullet in your head, and it takes a couple of minutes, and you're dead. So a lot of people did that on the way. And then we got to Bergen-Belsen, and my sister got, her leg was frozen from the cold during the night. She tried to talk my mother into leaving and staying in one of the stables on the way, that maybe we could escape. But we never saw German, and we never saw anybody who would help us anyway. We thought if anybody would ever find us, they would probably tell on us and we'd be jailed anyway. And then we did get liberated finally in Bergen-Belsen, and the English came in. And I don't know if any of you know, but more people died the day that the English liberated us than at any other time, because they were so generous, and everything they carried with themselves, like Spam and Frankfurters and sardines, and anything people ate, they died from it because our stomachs were not used to it. And so more people died that day than I ever remembered anywhere where I stayed. And I was so careful to give my mother just a little bit. She had typhoid fever, and I was trying to keep her alive so she could wait for me so we could die on the same day. But for them, we got liberated, and I was afraid even to eat. Then they put this beautiful food in front of us, and then it disappeared, and I didn't know what happened to it, but they thought we didn't want it, and I just thought I'd look at it for a while and wait and see if I could sort of cut it up and get a little bit each day, because I didn't know if we would be fed again. And once we got liberated, the Swedish government offered to take 10,000 refugees. How am I doing time-wise? Good. They would take 10,000 refugees, and I volunteered, and they said my mother would have to get a little bit better. And so we ended up in Sweden, and I cannot tell you how unbelievable they were to us. They just at first did everything possible. they sent me to a private school. They tested me what I was best for. They were just unbelievable while we were there. And my mother had a brother whose address she remembered here in America, and she wrote to him, and of course, he started working on papers. And then I met Colonel Bernadotte, who was then in Sweden, and he said, I would love to do something for you. Is there anything I can do? And I said, yeah, I want to go to America. And 9 days after I met him, we had our papers to come. And so that worked out. So anyway, from there I came to my uncle, and then my mother had a cousin in New York. I came to New York, and before my 18th birthday, I met my fantastic American husband at a college dance, and with 3 children later and a fabulous life, here I am.
Hi, I'm Mia Foyer. I'm not a Holocaust survivor. I am the wife of a Holocaust survivor, but he fell asleep. He's a resident of Parker, and he's the best person in the world. He was 14 years old. He lived in Transylvania, and when the Hungarian occupation came, they allowed the SS to arrange the ghetto, and all the Jewish people were taken away from the small community where he lived. My in-laws were the nicest people on earth. They were religious, and they were like on the front, the first list to be taken out. And they went to a ghetto not far away from the location where, I don't know if anybody knew, Eli Wiesel. So I did not pronounce well, probably. Anyway, it was very hard. Before they were taken away, it was the Passover. And my father-in-law, that's what I know all this from my husband. I was not around there, but he used to talk. This would be like something on his heart, the way he lost his parents. His parents were the nicest people, and everybody in the community loved them. And before, when it was Seder evening, religious people put a white coat on when they say the prayers, and at the Seder. And my father-in-law, this was something what my husband always, when we had the holidays, used to say. My father put that coat he was supposed to be buried on the last time, and he says, I don't think that I will ever wear this. And sure enough, the next day they were taken in the ghetto. That was in May 1st. In May 29, they were taken to Auschwitz. But through all these countries they went in these, like the trains which they were only carrying animals with, and they were not able to see. But they saw that it was different names of different countries where they passed by. And then they arrived where in Auschwitz, where this Dr. Mengele, what was mentioned, decided that he will separate people. So right away, my husband and his father, and his father were put in one side, and the mom and the 2 sisters, they were 5 people. And he was scared, like that what's going to be, but they were told that they're going to meet again and they shouldn't worry. hours later, he found out that he had to go in a bunker where it was like 1,000 people on one block, and to sleep on, they gave them like the robes, like the ones what you are in jail with, and nothing else. And from there on, he said that the way they moved around, exactly that if you move a little, you wouldn't have room where to lay down. But that was the situation, and the only thing that a Polish older person who was there said, I want you to look up. There is a chimney where smoke comes out, and you should know this was June 2nd, and you should always know that the Yurtzeit for your parents will be, that's where your parents were burned. So it was very hard, but in the way he told me that he had a cantor who was from the same location where we lived, and he really watched over him. And in June 2nd, they were taken in and liberated. After that, they were on May 8, 1945. He went through a lot. He carried dead people. It was very hard. But he became the nicest person on earth. He came home, and he learned how to be a dentist. And that's how I met him. I went to the dentist, and I met this wonderful person. And the fact that we tried to have a beautiful family, and he was the happiest guy when our son was born. And like Hana said before, it's such a pride that we had one son, and I have 2 grandchildren, and our life was the most beautiful life. We are so grateful to God for the rest of our life. The only thing what bothers me that right now, he cannot remember things. He is a resident of Parker. Everybody is beautiful, wonderful, taking care of him. But now when it's important to be together, I go every day home in the evening. I come in the morning and I go in the evening. But he's the most wonderful person on the earth. And I thank you. I cannot tell more things because I knew a lot what we were talking. But I try to support him to know that there is family now. And his 2 sisters came back, and they were survivors. And she's still one. The older one is 92 years old and beautiful. She's still alive. And we're grateful to God for everything we get from now on. And I thank you so much. I cannot tell you more things, but I just want, he should know how much I love him. Thank you. Oh, and I found Hana. I'm sorry.
They found each other after 45 years.
Our children went to school together.
And here I found that.
Sam is very lucky to have you as a wife. We're going to open it up for questions.
And I just wanted you should know who my Sammy is. This is Sammy. This is my Sammy. Nothing. Say hello. Uite-te acolo. I'm fine. Say hello, Mama. Come on. Thank you. This is the best person in the world. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm so...
Okay, my name is Eva. I'm a child of a Holocaust survivor. I want to thank Parker for taking wonderful care of my mother. And my mother is from Romania, and I'm from Transylvania, so I felt the story with Hana, and my mother is also Czech, So I shared the story with the other Holocaust survivor. My mother has 3 children, 5 grandchildren, 17 great-grandchildren, and all the children are professionals, doctors, dentists, name it. And it just was very heartwarming to hear the story of the survivors. And again, thanks for Parker for taking wonderful care. And thank you for the stories.
Thank you to Parker.
About the strength of some of these people. I know Alice personally, and I know after she came to this country and met her husband, she had the discipline and the desire to go to school. She got 2 degrees, raised 4 degrees, I'm lying, has 3 beautiful children and grandchildren, and it was wonderful that she was able to pull herself out of this and go to school and do so many things. Of course, she had the most wonderful husband by her side, but her determination was something so admired, to go through all of that and then go to school. She didn't even have a high school degree, but they admitted her into Hofstra.
Holocaust survivors are the strongest people in the world. Yes, please.
Your stories are amazing, and thank you for telling them. But so many of the survivors' children suffer the second generation. Dr. Eva Folger, who you may know, has studied the second generation, has found that there is upon the second generation so much guilt, so much trauma, that many of those children relive the emotions. What made your kids different? What made you different and able to be positive in life?
That's what I want to answer to you, my darling. Let me tell you, the second generation, I'm speaking from my own point of view. I didn't have nobody to tell the story, and when they got in the age where they understood me, I went and I told my horrible story, which is nothing what I told you here, to be honest. The rough things I keep, I can't talk about it. So yes, it had an effect on my sons. It had an impact, I must tell you. They felt guilty, especially my older son. And I know for a fact from other friends that are stating the same thing. It did have an impact on the second generation. I don't think it's going to have on the third generation, but on the second it did. Thank you for the question.
I would just like to add that there's research that has come out within the past year or so by geneticists that have shown that when someone goes through extreme trauma, it affects their biochemistry, it affects their cells, and so there is a genetic change that is passed down to that next generation. So it's psychological as well as, now we know, genetic, which opens up a whole new field of research. Other questions? Yes, please.
My name is Audrey Liu. I'm a Chinese. I know you Jewish people, I appreciate you Jewish people have these things so well recognized. So we Chinese people get benefit also. My father was, I was born in 1938. My father went to Burma from Chongqing to Burma to fight the Japanese. And we did not see him for 7 years. When he comes back, we don't know him. My sister and I, we don't know him. My sister died because we don't have enough food to eat. We don't have medicine. And I really appreciate the Jewish people keep this alive, and we Chinese people benefit also. Thank you so much.
Okay, I would like to thank our speakers for opening up and sharing such painful but important memories with everybody. And a huge thank you to Parker Jewish Institute for organizing this amazing event. So thank you very much. And now the rabbi.
We want to thank our panelists, Beth Lilac, Hana Pfeifen Wievenfeld, Alice Tannenbaum, and Mia and Samuel Foyer, for sharing your remarkable and inspiring stories of strength at this special Holocaust Remembrance event. Your innermost thoughts and feelings and experiences put unforgettable human faces on this lowest time in history's man's inhumanity, unprecedented evil, and horrifying suffering. Your words and stories are a powerful reminder not only of the tragic consequences of unchecked hate, but also of the strength of the human spirit. A child who wanted to learn how to play the violin went to one of the world's renowned concert violinists and wanted to take a lesson. And the expert violinist told the child that the most important lesson is to always keep your chin up. In today's world of rampant terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, bloodshed, and political unrest throughout the world, we must share these inspiring stories of courage and of perseverance and of resiliency, especially to the younger generation, and learn this most important lesson in life. Always keep our chins up with optimism, with hope, and with faith. I conclude with this benediction. Elohei Olam, Lord of the universe, as we gather together at this meaningful Holocaust Remembrance program, we ask for your divine blessings. Give us the courage to transcend our fears, to resist evil, and to always act justly. Help us to learn that what is most valuable is not what we have in our lives, but who we have in our lives. Grant us the hope for a future that is filled with love and peace and happiness, and instill in us the faith to follow your sacred ways throughout life. May we all merit to see the fulfillment of your blessings, as prophesied by your humble servant Isaiah. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, v'lo yumadu el milchama. May we soon live in a world where nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they know war anymore. And let us say, amen. Thank you.